Hey everybody, it's Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today we are combining two of our favorite things, reactions and coming out later in life. I've had some TikTok videos with the topic of later in life and coming out later in life sent to me, and I'm going to react to them and respond to them right here on this channel. So here we go.
Things I didn't realize that were gay until I realized that I was gay. Number one, when all of my friends would practice kissing each other to practice for boys, I would never kiss other girls. I was like, no way, I'm not gay, so I'm not doing this. And I think that's really funny because I've known that I've been attracted to women for longer than I've known that I haven't been attracted to men. So you'd think that little Tori would have been excited about this idea, but no, she was petrified. And I think that I was really worried because what if I liked it, you know? Number two, not wanting to hug or touch my straight girlfriends. I would not hug anyone. I was not a hugger as a kid. And anytime a girl that I had a crush on would get close to me, I would literally get the goosebumps all over my body. Even if she just passed me and I smelled her perfume, goosebumps. So touching girls was absolutely out of the question. Like we were not doing that. It made me too nervous. Gay panic. Three, I only wanted to be a boy because I wanted to propose to a woman someday. Very gay.
So this video itself is a lot of people's story, right? The idea that you go far, far, far away from the thing that you think might be making you weird or different when you're younger. I mean, that connects to all the things we've been talking about internalized homophobia and heteronormativity and this idea that being straight is normal. And so you have to be super, super straight or stay away from anything that anybody could ever think might make you gay in order to be accepted. And that process doesn't really unravel until you're in a place where you're safe to explore that and understand what that might mean for you. It can get really complicated. This last one though, I do think that that is something that we will need to do an entirely different video about, because definitely people deserve the space and the understanding to come to terms with who they are and whether or not that matches the sex they were assigned at birth. If you believe that, you have to give room for people while they're working through heteronormativity to think, oh, it'd be easier if I was a boy if they were born assigned female. That doesn't make them trans. It also does not detract from the experience of people who are trans. I would love for that question to be something that every single person works through. To understand, does my experience with the world match the sex I was assigned at birth, or does it not? And if it doesn't, what does that mean for me? How do I navigate that? How do I share that information with people around me? Do I share it? And all of those questions, if we could get our society to a place where we're comfortable with people asking those questions, the world would be such a safer place for our trans siblings.
As a 27-year-old lesbian who didn't come out until 25 and who dated men their entire life up until then, I think it's so funny to look back at some of the thought processes I had while dating men that I'm like, how did I not see it? Like one time my long distance boyfriend left my apartment and I literally had only been with him for like maybe 48 hours and I started sobbing, not because I was gonna miss him, because I was so overstimulated, so overwhelmed, and just so over that man being in my house. And instead of being like, maybe we don't like him, like let's question this, I was like, oh, I must actually have an avoidant attachment style, not an anxious attachment style. And if you know me, there is not an avoidant bone in my body.
Attachment style conversation. So this is great. The idea of diagnosing ourselves with something wrong with us because we don't want to be 24/7 with someone is so, how many of you out there have pathologized your attraction to people of the same sex? How many of you have pathologized the idea that you do not experience sexual attraction? How many of us have pathologized this idea of being anywhere outside of the norm instead of investigating that idea and thinking,
maybe I don't like this person, or maybe I don't like these persons.
Instead of doing that, we just sort of assign blame to ourselves and continue that cycle of internalized homophobia.
So when I first started to realize that I was attracted to women, I had this like constant back and forth of, am I gay? Am I bi? Like, what am I? Am I really attracted to women, or am I just telling myself that I am? And I have obviously processed that, and I definitely identify as a lesbian now. But One thing that was like a light bulb moment for me was when I thought about like the thought of dating men versus the thought of dating women. And I was with a guy at that point. I had been dating him for quite a long time. And I thought to myself, if I could choose, like, I would date a woman. I would never, ever decide or choose to date a man, despite the fact that I was dating one. But I said to myself, like, if I could choose, I would never, ever want to date a man. And so I really sat with that for a while. And this idea of, like, why would anyone choose to date a man? And that was kind of when I had this light bulb moment of, oh shit, I actually am gay. Like, this idea, if I could choose, then I would choose a woman. If you think that, honey, I'm sorry to break it to you, you're gay.
I mean, she kind of said it all. That process, though, is a complicated one. If you live in a world that has never introduced the idea to you that you can be gay or that you can be bi or that you can be pan, all the things out there that line up to tell us we have to be cis-het has led this person, and I bet a lot of you out there, to this idea of, if I could choose, I would do this. But you can choose. Society might tell us we can't. And there will be, unfortunately, ramifications to choosing. You may lose people in your life, and you may have to make some decisions about how your life is going to play out. You may have to put up some boundaries with people that you love, and you may have to explore independent parts of yourself that you have not previously needed to explore. Also, you may live your realest, truest, deepest life possible. So there is that.
Before I came out as a lesbian, I thought I might be bi, and so I wanted to talk about how I was able to determine whether I was a lesbian or if I was bi. Back when I was still questioning my sexuality, I knew for sure that I liked women, so that's why I thought I must be bi, because at the time I was in a relationship with a man and I had only ever dated men. And because I had only dated men, I really needed to look inwards, and I re-examined all of my past relationships with men and thought about what was it about those relationships that I liked. I asked myself what was so attractive about the guy, like what attracted me to him. And the things that I came up with for why I was attracted to the guys were things like, oh, he made me feel like I was attractive. He took care of me. He made a lot of money. He made me feel like I fit in, or that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing because I was in my 20s and needed to have a boyfriend at that point. And I realized that my attraction to them wasn't actually attraction. I was just attracted to what they could do for me. I also asked myself, could I picture myself happy in the future with a man? And as I thought about this, I was like, absolutely not. I thought to myself, if I could choose which gender I ended up with, I would always choose a woman. Like, there's no way I would choose to be with a man. I just felt like I would only be happy, like truly happy, if I ended up with a woman, and that if I ended up with a man, I would always feel like there was something wrong or something missing. And that's kind of when I determined that I was a lesbian.
Another in this theme of if I could choose. The assumption that you do not have the ability to choose comes from heteronormativity. It comes from internalized homophobia. It comes from heterosexism. It comes from a very early age being conditioned to believe that girls and boys get together and they get married and they have kids and then they get a house and that is the way that things work. And so everything in our lives is sort of pointed in that direction, right? Look at the literature you read in school. Look at the way we tell stories. Look at the way we break things up in like classes, you know? How else were you supposed to process this? Besides, I don't have a choice, but if I could choose, I would choose this. The fact that you do then get to choose is huge for people, but is also terrifying for people. And that is why coming out is sometimes super, super scary. Also, when people grow up in these kind of homes and these kind of towns, sometimes states, you are not introduced to the idea that you could be anything but cis-het. This is where media comes into play, and it drives me nuts because people are like, oh, because you're seeing this in the media, that's why people are coming out as bi, it's why people are coming out as pan, it's why people are trans, and they're not wrong. But the reason for that is actually a good reason. When people are exposed to new ideas, they are able to say, yes, this fits me. No, this does not fit me. New ideas are not scary. They are not threatening unless you allow them to be. An idea is a non-threatening entity. But for these two creators, and I bet a lot of you out there, it was a while before you were able to really process the option that you don't have to be with a man if you're a woman. You don't have to be with a woman if you're a man. The idea that you do not have to be any specific thing and you can be whoever you actually are inside is a relatively new one for most societies. And because of that, that leads to people coming out later in their lives, because sometimes you have to get out of that town, out of that home, away from that family, or you need to be introduced to other ideas or concepts or even just ways of looking at the world before your mind can open up enough to see parts of what are making you unhappy about your life and what could potentially make you happier. The idea of being happy in your life should not be a foreign one. We should not be settling for less than what we want or need in order to fit someone else's narrative. That's not your job. Your job is to become you, not become someone else's version of you that they imagined for themselves. If they want something different, they can go be something different. That's not on you. If you are someone who is coming out later in life and coming to terms with who you are, and you've got family, maybe you're in a marriage, maybe you've got kids, obviously that needs to be entered into cautiously, because these are all people. They're all people, and they all have feelings and they have processes and emotions that need to be handled with care. Handling that with care and being caring to the people who are just starting to understand this about you for the first time, or whose lives are being impacted by these things that you're telling them, it doesn't mean their hurt is more important than yours. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, I invite you to check out this video right here, which talks in more depth about the reasons that people come out later in life and why that might not be such a bad thing for some people. That's it for today. Thank you so much for being here. I will see you all next time. And until then, take care of yourselves and each other.